wanted to do a video on VS Code and some of the basic usage of it. To get VS Code, you go to the search bar and type VS space code, and then it's the first one that appears here. I'm on Linux, so the Debian one here is for Ubuntu or for Debian, and the RPM one is for Fedora. If you're a Windows, you'd have an exe or an MSI file you could download. Just hit download and then install it on your system. It'll be different for Windows and for Linux. I'll pause the video for a second and bring up VS Code. Now I have VS Code open to this VS Code folder. It'll ask you if you want to trust the authors or not, since this is an empty folder that I just started. To add a file to the folder, you hit new file. You can do a new folder to group stuff. We'll do a new file, and we're just going to do index.html. Gives you some options here. I wanted to show the control and so you could hit generate code. You can also do Control-Shift-P, and it gives you a command palette of different commands you can run. Which is useful. Different options. If you do exclamation and then you do tab, it does an emit abbreviation which does the HTML base document for you. Then you can just fill in the title of the document. This goes in the browser tab. And the body tag is where you put divs and text, and you can see it auto-completed that. You still have your chat window over here if you want to do it with the AI. That's how easy it is to do it. Just shift exclamation and then tab. It'll get the standard HTML template for you. And you can fill it out. In the head, you put your SEO. In the body, you put everything that displays on the screen. And usually you'll have a footer that it doesn't include. You can manually make the footer how you want. It usually has the copyright symbols and everything in it. It gives you a couple options for new files. If you use C#, this has a bit more options for C# files and classes. And then you hit save. In Linux with Apache 2, you put all your internet files in this var www directory. If you're using Windows, you often use XAMPP, which is XAMPP, XAMPP, and you can see it's filling in htdocs, and that's where you would put the files in Windows. It's usually under the C drive. So C drive, XAMPP, and then put your HTML files under htdocs. And then when you go to the web browser, you type in localhost and hit enter. And then it will bring up the HTML file you have in one of these two directories, depending if you're on, this one's Linux and this one's Windows. And then you can test how it looks on the screen. Now we can do another file, styles.css. And then the CSS file, you can do like body, and then do something like that. You can see autocomplete is pretty good for that. And A tags, you want like that. And then this style CSS will be used, can be used inside of the index file. But you have to put a reference up here in the head section to the style sheet so it'll load it properly. And then you get good font styles, and makes the page look better than just default HTML. When you want to save, you can hit save as, save, or if we hadn't saved these already, you can hit save all. In Visual Studio, it gives you Visual Studio Code. It gives you a new file, open folder, which is usually the one I use because it opens a group of files, and that's common for bigger websites. So you have all your files under one folder. There are also some walkthroughs over here that can get you started on using Copilot and Visual Studio Code. If you want, you can use some add-ins. I have MinifyAll, which takes a formatted text like this and puts it all in one line. And then if you want to get it back, Visual Studio has a built-in format document. And you see it didn't do quite right with this part, which was just text. If you want to comment that out and we'll just get rid of that for now. If you lose some of the windows, you can go here to the View menu, Explorer. There's the command palette. If you need to open a terminal to run an Angular command or a C# .NET run or build command, you can hit new terminal and it puts a terminal down here. And then you can just do .NET build, that's for C#, .NET run, that's if you're doing like a MVC project. Angular uses different commands to build and run, and then you get a server that you can click on and it opens up in your browser so you can test. You can get C# extensions, and a bunch of other extensions that are available. You kind of want to be careful with what extensions you install, because they have pretty much full control over Visual Studio. So if it's a bad actor, it could do something, overwrite your files or some other bad action that you really wouldn't want. Most of the things are in the menus if you forget, and they have keyboard shortcuts for the ones that you use often. Let's start with debugging. You have option of Chrome, Edge, or the integrated browser. I have Firefox, so let's try integrated browser and see what it does. Well, appears to do nothing. So you would need to take your HTML and your CSS and put it in the web server directory to directly test it. I could also install Chrome on my system, and then it would run from Chrome, but I don't have Chrome on my system right now. If you have need help, there's some questions. One thing I do suggest, especially on Linux, to help cut down background processes, is you go to Settings and then search for telemetry. And you can see it's got a few things enabled, and we don't want any of this to say enabled, so we'll turn it all off. And that helps your system not be running these apps. So when you click this one, it's going to ask you to restart this system. And now we turned off telemetry, so it's not sending information back to Microsoft. That helps your background processes in Linux run a lot faster. You don't have any extra information leaking out of VS Code back to Microsoft. Sometimes that helps them make it better, but it is a hit on your performance when you're developing. VS Code is pretty fast on Linux, so it's a good option for JavaScript, TypeScript, Angular, React. All the major web languages run in it. I even done some Python right in the browser here. So you can do a lot of different code types. Like I said, C# is an add-in. It's an extra thing. And you'd use C# for like REST APIs for back-end systems to connect to SQL Server databases or MySQL databases, which feed your data for your front end with React or Angular or Vue. So that's a few features. If you hit here, it shows you your files, and then you have your structure of your program, so it's easy to find. This is source control. If you have GitHub hooked up to it, you can search for things. Run and debug obviously didn't work for the web because I don't have Chrome installed. So that's the basics of it. And there is also just Visual Studio, which only runs in Windows. It is different than VS Code. It does desktop applications, some Android apps using a variant of Xamarin, and some other kinds of development that are specifically for Windows, or for app development with Android or iOS. But that Visual Studio has been very bloated, and then it just came out with a 2026 version, which is much lighter weight, but seems from my initial usage of it still has some issues. It used to be really slow and bloated and would make your Windows machine crash or lock up, and now the new version's much better, but still needs work in my opinion. And that's VS Code. Extensions for like the MinifyAll is good for making your HTML files small, so when they ship out on the web browser, they don't take up much space. They only show up as one line when they view them as source. That makes it harder to read, so we formatted it back to a format that you can actually read. You can match up your divs, make sure all your tags are there. This version is much easier to read than trying to modify this. Oh, thanks for watching.